Well, what is marketing's purpose, right? It's to communicate value to the customer. That's it,
Sure.
100%.
Yeah.
It's to be able to hook them. And all too often it's in Sandler, it's a funny, I still use several idioms from Sandler, but one of them is spilling your candy in the lobby. And the thing is the way that David Sandler, who's no longer with us, he would explain to it, you're so excited to get to the movie that you grab everything you can at the counter and you're running and you trip and fall and you spill your popcorn and your candy all over the lobby floor. So you're over there frantically trying to pick it up. And that's the problem with a lot of salespeople that I feel is that they're felt like they have to rush and tell you everything.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Thinking Project podcast, where we interview founders and creatives to help you take the next step in your business by listening to inspired stories of these wonderful founders. I hope you enjoy this podcast and make sure to share it with your friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, now we're rolling, Jesse. How are you, my friend?
Dude, I'm doing great. I'm doing great.
So you were talking to me about the Accelerate conference. You had some really awesome ideas about how marketing and sales interact. And I think that that's a great little piece of info, because one of the hardest things for salespeople to empathize with is marketing, right? Because, it's like you either think that marketing, because like, if you're not a marketer, right, you feel like marketing is full of like vanity metrics, right? So like, there's just a lot of like, like this isn't actually helping me, right? But then, and then you have marketers who are like, if, they kind of like attack the egos of the sales guys, right? Which is to say, like, if you guys are so good, why can't you close anything I throw your way? And so you get this, you know what I mean? It's like, you get this kind of like this headbutt, this battle,
right?
And where there shouldn't be, right? But you had an interesting way of putting that just before we hopped on, right? Which is marketing's job is to what?
To not make salespeople feel like assholes when they go to talk to their clients.
Because sometimes it's like, dude, this, these leads came in and you're like, oh, freak, dude.
Well, I mean, for instance, where my mind changed. So, and I throw it to you, brother. I really respect that you have honed in and are trying to be able to teach people the art of selling, because anybody can learn this, but it's quite difficult to actually put it to work. And so it's theoretical and practical. I'm a Sandler graduate. I went through Sandler training years and years ago. It was a great start, but when I see salespeople today, and I was talking about the Accelerate conference, every booth that was there, they might as well been trying to pat me down for my wallet, because immediately going into, because that's what they're told to do, like hit everybody up and give them value. And as a marketer, like, a lot of times when they think of marketing, they think of, oh, it's just the social media guy or the website guy. But it's everywhere from your website that translates into how your people are interacting with your day-to-day people. And going to this conference, like, it's even like the whole thing of networking. Like, I don't like the old school type of networking. I go over there and I've got to make a friend and I say, hey, Dalton, you're my sales training guy. I will pass them all to you, but you have to promise to pass all of your messaging and marketing to me. Like, like I owe you something. Like, you remember when I pulled your child out of the ice freezing water? Yeah, I'm calling it in, right? I need that favor. And that's, quite frankly, that's just not how relationships are built. And too often, it's not thought about relationships. And when you talk about the customer, you're developing a relationship with them. Your salespeople, when they go out, and we all know that, right? When you got that that look like, oh, it's another sales guy. And I've done it before to some other guys who show up. I mean, they got the company name on their hat, on their shirt, and down their sweatpant leg. And I ask them if they work for their competitor. They're like, no, I work for this company. I'm like, oh, I was totally confused. I'm so sorry. I didn't know what you're doing. But being there was exhausting. It was great because a lot of the speakers that were there were all focused on making a connection with your customer,
Mhm.
getting them to be emotional about your product or service to be able to help them improve their life, not you make money.
Mhm.
And the disconnect I saw there were a lot of companies that had booths there, they talked everything about them, but nothing about the customer. And
Mhm.
that's where I feel that a lot of companies who nowadays are coming up have failed in that part. There are some really good ones.
Yeah.
One in Utah that I love. I got to meet the guys over there, and I'm going to give them a shout out here because why not? Because they're kick ass. A company called Pesty, and they had this great billboard saying that your pest control company is lying to you.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah, or like, yeah, their billboard up on, yeah,
yeah,
your pest control company is ripping you off. Yeah,
yeah, pest control companies ripping you off. And I
yeah,
love that because that message is one poking the eye of every single competitor. And it's also poking the eye to the customer because the customer trusts whoever you're dealing with in business or sales.
yeah,
The form of how they solidify that trust is by handing over currency. They say, hey, look, I trust you so much. I'm going to give you these promissory notes that say, I value what you have. And it's hard because like in the pest control company, and I know you've had this and many of your listeners have had this, when they show up, they're like, hey, just wondering if you need some pest control. Like, I've seen some spiders around here. And they have a slick and it's automatic, if for those who don't understand a slick, it's a laminated sheet of stuff they got to say to you, improve their value. And they're like 50% 75% more than what you're paying currently. And then they got to get on the phone like they're calling the president going, hey, look, we need some help, can I lower the price?
yeah.
And
Old
they're,
school like D to D stuff. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. And it just,
yeah,
it's frustrating because they're the companies that are out there right now don't invest enough into sales training and
yeah,
also
yeah,
a unity between marketing and sales.
yeah. Well, what you were talking about earlier, I thought was interesting, is because I think every salesperson needs to go through some marketing training, and I think every marketing person needs to go through some sales training, because I
Amen.
feel like salespeople miss, because marketing's whole thing is like branding and storytelling and the relationship. Like if you're talking about leads that come into the company, those leads that gets passed to the salespeople, I mean, their relation, like they're getting there because of the relationship that marketing has developed with these customers, right? And so salespeople have forgot, like missed this. They're disconnected from the fact that like that marketing and the brand did do something with this relationship. And now, and so salespeople, like I was guilty of it early on before I learned how important marketing
Oh,
was
hell
and
yeah.
branding, right? Is like, we're just like, oh, we just got to sell it, right? We just got to get it done. Like they must know nothing about us having inquired. And you're like, that's the exact opposite actually, right? And so it's just, yeah, it's interesting to realize, like as a salesperson, you're on the back half of that relationship. Like now you're trying to, like, yeah, like you were saying, right, like exchange that trust. And it's always just funny because I heard it like when I was learning direct response copywriting, which is just basically like selling online, right?
Yeah.
I heard someone say like good copywriting is you being understood, and great copywriting is the customer feeling understood, right? And there's a big
Mhm.
difference there. And I was like, dang, that's true. But you know what, you're right though, is because like everybody, but it's we live in just this crazy, I think Utah's just in the growing pains of but for real, like there's so
Right.
many companies here, and it's, you like offend people when you're like, I've offended people when they tell me what their business is, and I'm like, oh, that's like, oh, so you like generate leads for companies? They're like, oh no, we do more. I'm like, well, you just told me that you have a landing page up, and you, once you get the leads, you pass them off to. They're like, yeah, but it's more than that. I'm like, all right, what if it's more than that in your head, right? But like, I go, guys, we're not like like our companies aren't really like I'm not a special sales trainer, right? But I think you get like these egos, and I think we're just, Utah's in like this growing pain of like working from like innovating and disrupting, which is very important, to like the next step, the next evolution of innovation and disruption, which is like then what you're talking about, like connecting and relationships and like like
Yeah.
actual what it actually means to build the lifetime value of a customer, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm laughing because when you said that these salespeople that are they're literally one. I'm going to go back a little bit. One,
Yeah.
salespeople should never feel like they're beneath any person that they're talking to. That's why good sales training and sales training. Like I want to, for people who have like a negative connotation of that one, where we're talking about like all the old greats like Brian Tracy and Tom
Sure.
Hopkins and all of these guys, Jim Rome.
Mhm.
Um, that was great, but you have to understand that that came from a different period of time, the
Yeah.
1970s and 80s. Like you
Yeah.
can't do a Benjamin Franklin close
Yeah.
today. Well, a great patriot, you know what he used to do when he had decisions to make? He draw
He'd
a
make a pros
line
and
down a
cons. Yeah.
paper, right?
Make a pros and cons list.
Right. And then you get all the pros and you help him get all the pros down. And on the cons, you're like, on
Hmm.
your luck. You're on your own, babe. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't help with that. So they have to feel like they're in line with it. And so the way that I look at sales training
Yeah.
is mine, what was it? Mind space calibration, right? It's to get you in the right frame of mind.
Yeah.
Salespeople have to be very, and I've been out there, I've been direct B2B
Hmm.
selling, taught by people that I'm so grateful for that did horrible, cringy stuff because I got to watch in real time. And
Yeah.
I have an ability because of places that I've been in my life, right? I was in the US Navy in the late 90s. I worked for 10 years in the mental health field for the state of Utah. And I always hated the job, but now I love it because it taught me how to be able to really connect and understand people, not like
Yeah.
that whole stupid bullshit of body mirroring where they go, if he folds his arms, you fold your arms.
Yeah,
He
or if
crossed
like
his legs.
or if like he folds his arm, that means he thinks you're lying. It's like,
Yeah.
well, or he's like just folding his arm.
He looked off up and to the right, which means he's making everything up. And
Yeah,
off to the
yeah,
left, it's all just
yeah.
truth. The honest thing is when you're
Yeah,
able to have those great connections, and that's what salespeople need. They need the
yeah,
confidence to go out there. The world of e-commerce, everything like that. There is always, always, always one of the oldest professions in the world is selling, and that has to
yeah.
be true to those individuals. And it's sad for you. I know I've met a lot of people. I've mentored a lot of other people and companies and telling them you got to get over the garbage in your head. You are just trying to help people.
Yeah.
So, like we're, the predominant faith here, the Latter-day Saints, when their missionaries are going out, they're not like, hey, close everybody. You got to dunk them all, right?
Yeah.
They're not a pack of Oreos, right? We want to make sure that we're treating them as individuals. And so they've been told over time to just be all about service, be awesome, be cool,
Yeah.
do what you can for them. Don't always put yourself in there, right?
Right.
It's really hard to hear that because it's vital. And who are the people that
Yeah.
mostly give salespeople the worst time? Other businesses that have salespeople.
For sure.
It
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense.
No, no, no. The
So,
hardest person to sell to is another salesperson for sure. When it should be
but
like the easiest.
right, like you probably have had this. Like whenever I've met
Yeah.
people across the U.S. that have gone through Sandler training, and when they try to do the actual like this is how you do it, like step by
Right.
step, and I just smile and I go, "How long ago was it when you went to Sandler?" And they go,
Yeah.
"What?" Like you
Yeah. They're
pulled.
like,
No, it's like you should be open about it. Like
right.
it's refreshing to meet
Yeah.
somebody who's like, hey, this person's got it planned out. They want to get everything they can out of me to be able to see if they can help me.
Right.
And they're genuine enough to be able to say, look, don't worry about it. Like your friendship is more important to me than me making a buck.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say that without saying that because then they
Well,
don't trust you.
well, and what I think is funny about this, the conversation that we're having now is the more that you like, the new kind of wave of selling that's taking over is like have so much going on essentially that no one thing distracts you, right? Like the what I learned about, so I first learned about closing the old school way but the new way of closing is kind of like what you're saying is like, dude, I don't care if you buy because I have like 15 people lined up. You know what I mean? Like I've got so much going on that like if you don't buy, like we can still be friends because I'm not, my whole life isn't riding on this one deal. And that's a powerful way. Like it used to be like, how do you build scarcity? Well, you do all these cheesy hard closes, right? But now like that, you know, now the way to build scarcity is just by telling somebody like, dude, I have some, like I have to, you know what I mean? I have too many customers right now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I and then to go back and like, you don't have to do all these cheesy, yeah, it's just so crazy. Like, it's just like, dude, you just got to be real with people now. So you just have to be transparent. You have to connect with people. But it's not, you know, it's because I'm in the same boat as you. Like I've read all the cheesy books. You know
Yeah,
what I
but
mean?
they
Like,
were awesome though, man. I mean, they gave you this
yeah.
exhilarating feeling of I mean, it's like going to a motivational speaker. Like all you're paying for is a shot of serotonin. That's all you're getting. Like you show up. I mean, they've got some
Yeah.
cool little blue drinks, look like Tron Blue, and then you drink
Yeah.
it, and they go, "All right, when he starts speaking about 30 minutes, you're gonna feel it kick in." And
Yeah.
and that's the way it should be looked at. Like if you need a boost, why not? You go to this
Yeah.
person, and they just have the ability to connect with you, and
Yeah.
for a short period of time, shorter than a high of cocaine, it is going to leave you. It will leave
Yeah.
you, right? Like one of the funniest things, I saw a video, it might have been on Instagram or TikTok, and this guy was trying to show how to close a deal. And the funniest thing is, it was a Grant Cardone close.
Oh,
And I
totally.
laughed because the guy was trying to put, he goes, "This is how you do it." And I'm like, "Oh, bro, I love that. That's in the closer survival guide." Yeah, yeah. I remember that.
I
What?
so it's funny when you say that because I've done that too. So like it's funny because like everybody, you know, that I think that's where everybody first heard him, and then Grant got him from someone else and whatever. Who cares? But the funny thing about that is like, yeah, I do that with my wife. Like come across TikTok and somebody's like, "Let me show you how to overcome the spouse objection," and I'll pause it and I'll be like, "Hey, do you want to know what he's gonna say?" And she'll be like, "How do you know what he's gonna say?" And I go, "Because I know. Because the way this guy looks, it looks like he's about to say, well,
Yeah.
what if she says no?" And then I'll hit play, and then he'll be like, "The first question you ask him is, what if they say no?" And I'm like, she's like, "How did you know that?" I'm like, "Because we all learned the same shit in
Yeah.
selling." And by the
It's just
way,
on repeat.
yeah. By the way, time out. I actually, that's one of like when I read the closer survival guide, there's like whatever, however many thousands or whatever he calls them in there. But there was like one or two that were like actually genuinely like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, that's actually pretty good. Like you just nobody reads it because they're afraid of they're afraid of the 99% of the BS that's in there. And then you know what I mean? But there's the one or two that are like, okay, that actually is genuine, that fits my tone, that fits my cadence,
Yeah.
and it actually works. But anyway, it's just because I have the same as you. They're like, do you want to know how to get over if somebody needs to get their insurance? It's like,
Oh
okay,
my
do you want to know
goodness.
what he's gonna say? I go,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
it's like they got a string on their back where you pull it and
Right.
they'll say, like, "I know what he's gonna say." It's like watching your favorite movie so many times, and you just like you catch yourself mouthing the words to the show you're watching,
Yeah,
right?
your wife's like, dude, shut up and let me watch this movie.
Yeah,
Stop
like
repeating everything.
yeah, exactly. Like I've been in martial arts since I was 6 years old, and
Yeah.
still to this day, if I'm watching a movie with fight scenes, I have to consciously tell my body not to move because I used
Yeah.
to choreograph fight scenes for movies, for actual major motion productions, and
Oh, that's
so
crazy.
I would come up with the ideas, and but now it's like in me, so I'm like, so it's the same thing that you're
Yeah.
talking about with salespeople, right?
It's like,
Uh,
yeah.
I wrote a LinkedIn article back when you can actually write LinkedIn articles, and it was called "My Kung Fu is Better Than Yours,"
Yeah.
and that's what salespeople feel like, right? That's what
Right.
a lot of sales, and the way that I look at it, where sales training comes in there is that I'm not thinking about I need to have all of these things where I can just check off. I did
Mhm.
this. Okay, cool. I know exactly where I'm at.
Yeah.
But it's having it almost like when we just bringing up martial arts. You can't be like, "Okay, sir, if you're going to throw a punch at me, it has to be within this area. And if you could move at this speed, everything is going to work out great."
Right.
Um, it's like a Jim
That's great.
Carrey
Yeah.
skit, right? Like
Yeah. Like the,
the
yeah.
she stabs him and he goes, "No, you were supposed to attack me like this." So
Right.
it's the same thing with salespeople where they'll do that. And I remember a time where there was a thing in Sandler that they teach, which is called the upfront agreement,
Yeah,
right?
of course.
And so the upfront agreement, it's to be able to let them know and let you know exactly how you'd begin this meeting. And at the very end of it, it says, at any time during this, you can tell me no.
Yeah.
I just want you to be okay with that. And I was talking to a large corporation and they laughed at me. They just started laughing. And I was like, okay. And I was curious. I was like, why are you laughing? They go, you don't have to try so hard to earn our trust. The
Right.
fact that we've let you in, we're trusting you a little bit. We just want to get to know you.
Yeah.
And it was the first time where I realized that you cannot do sales within a
Yeah.
checkbox mindset. You're
Right.
moving. It's not chess. It's a freaking UFC fight. You're like, okay, I don't know what he's about to do. And he's like,
Yeah.
he throws this left hook, and the left hook is like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm not the decision maker. And you're like, oh shit, bob and weave,
Well,
bob and weave.
well, yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, that's probably why, like, I'm not a really popular, like, I mean, I love sales training, and like I have people who but I'm not like really polarizing, because like I don't like, this is all work. Like, one of my favorite, like, this is the only way you can sell. Like, cause I tell people, like, look, dude, my sales training, my method of, like, my motto behind my sales training is like, if you steal from one person, it's plagiarism, but if you steal from 10, it's called research, right? Like,
Mhm.
and I go, this is all just what I've learned and how it works for me, and how the principles that I've applied can apply to you. But like, you're not going to sound like me, because if you sound like me, then I did something wrong, actually, right? And
Yeah.
because, like, yeah, you have to like read the room, dude. You got to like, yeah, sometimes I definitely, like, sometimes I'm with, like, customers who are a little anxious, right? And so, yeah, then I'll do enough for a contract. Like, hey, at the end of this, hopefully we can be business partners. But if not, no worries, right? And then there's sometimes where, like, you got your homie, like, you've got somebody that you've built a nice, solid, like, little nice rapport with, nice little relationship with, and you're like, all right, dude, here's the deal. Like, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? And you just change it up, because you have to know who you're talking to. And I think that's what, by the way, that is what that is why salespeople should learn marketing, because a good marketer, the message is different depending on who they're talking to.
Well, what is marketing's purpose, right? It's to communicate value to the customer. That's it,
Sure.
100%.
Yeah.
It's to be able to hook them. And all too often, it's in Sandler. It's a funny. I still use several idioms from Sandler, but one of them
Sure.
is
It's great.
spilling your candy in the lobby. And the thing is the way that David Sandler, who's no longer with us, he would explain to it, you're so excited to get to the movie that you grab everything you can at the counter, and you're running and you trip and fall and you spill your popcorn and your candy all over the lobby floor. So you're over there frantically trying to pick it up. And that's the problem with a lot of salespeople that I feel
Yeah.
is that they're felt like they have to rush and tell you everything. Thing that I needed to do as an analytical person, I say, oh, okay, you checked off every box I will buy. And it's
Yeah.
hard, like you said, when you learn how to communicate, and that's what I put a lot of time into with behavioral psychology,
Yeah.
consumer psychology, neuro linguistic programming, all these different things. It's not to be able to learn how to manipulate them, but rather to be able to learn where they're coming from, and then communicating with myself going,
Yeah.
so I don't sound like a douchebag. I need to figure out how I can say things to them. And it's something
Yeah.
that you have to study. And a lot of people go, oh, that doesn't work. The funniest person who thinks that neuro-linguistic programming, which I think is great for messaging and being able
Yeah.
to understand the psychology of the customer,
Yeah.
Grant Cardone, I don't trust anybody who uses NLP. I just don't. All right. I won't do it. They're fictitious. They're weirdos. They don't know what they're doing. And you laugh because you're just like,
So funny.
but dude, I read all your closer survival guide. Like
Yeah.
one of my favorite ones, like just do it close. He's like, I was sitting with this couple and they're like, I don't know if we can afford this. And he goes, yeah. And his wife goes, you know what? We should just do it. And he's
Yeah.
like, that's a great close. Just do it. You should just do it. And
Yeah.
I guess in the context, like for fun, like you're renting tubes at the lake, $10 for a tube. You should just do it.
Well, you know what's funny about that, and I like where you're going with this, but not but I misspoke. And additionally, I like where you're going with this.
You're good.
Yeah.
I know the intent.
Additionally, right? I think a lot of this is what I've learned about sales is like when I'm teaching people, like, first of all, I don't really, we've talked before
Yeah.
this.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't teach closing as a step. Like closing is not one step in the like we don't get to that point. Like it starts in the beginning, because what I tell people is like, I can tell you where you lost a customer actually in step, 1 or 2 or whatever. And where you think you lost them in the close, I know you lost them actually when you were supposed to be asking questions. You didn't ask the right questions. You know what I mean? But what's funny about those is like, you just like, you have to know when to, it's like that old Kenny Rogers song. Like you have to know when to pull things out and when to not. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like when to just like keep it all back and when to use it and all those good things, because it's like, not everybody responds the same. And that's what I think sales is like about for me, is like having the knowledge, because I've used that, just, you know what I mean? Like that, just do it. Like I've said that to people before, like, but you're cool with them. You're like, it's like if me and you were trying to do something like, Jesse, the sooner rather than later. Like, Jesse, come on, you're going to do this in a week. What's the difference between a week and now? Might as well just get it done. But if I said that, but then I've said that to people and they're like, dude, shut up, you're a dick. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Shouldn't have done that.
Even then though, I mean, you had talked about earlier where people's feelings get hurt or you offend them.
Sure.
Right on. I do it all the time. I also say to people that I meet in business, and if I make a connection with them, I truly say this, and anybody who's listening knows me. I say, I love you. And they go, what? And I'm like, yeah, I love you, man. Because you know what? I think you're a good person. You're trying to help people. I love people like that. So I love you. And I will do anything I can to help you. And establishing that trust with them, it goes a long way. And I rarely have to bring up, because it's all carefully curated. Mm-hmm. Like people don't understand that too, is that there's not, hey, this guy, he's just awesome at talking to people. Hey, this lady, dude, she's awesome. She just gets people to buy things. Right. And they come in, they think they're some like Jedi master. And they're like, no, dude, like they have invested a lot of time to understand how this transaction works. Right. How this, because the idea between the salespeople and the marketing is to be able to synthesize, to create value. Value's not there yet. You have to create it. You have to figure it out. From value is trust. So the exchange of trust at the very end is like, okay, cool. And to maintain trust is after the fact, right? Yeah. We want people to trust us. I want my spouse to trust me. You want your spouse to trust you, right? And if I go out, and this is kind of funny, but like if I go out and I say, oh, I met this, and I fill in the blank of a woman that I met in business and I thought she was really smart. My wife goes, so what does she look like? Is she cute? Like, the hell you put me on the spot for? But it's exactly the same thing. But she does it as a joke, but she trusts me. Yeah. And as customers need to constantly be reaffirmed on trust. Yeah. We see brands today that don't, you wouldn't think have salespeople. You don't think that Apple has salespeople.
Yes. I had an argument with this guy on Facebook. Keep going. I'll tell you about my story later.
No, I love that, because the thing that's great about it is that they don't think that the big companies have sales reps. And they go, oh, of course, like I say, Apple has sales reps. Well, of course, I've been to their stores. No,
those guys
are no idea. No, those people are just like, do you have this in stock? Yes. And they serve a great purpose, right?
Right, of course. Yeah, we love the Apple. Yeah.
But behind the scenes, you think about all these companies and corporations that are using their products. That didn't come from somebody who goes, that sounds cool. I'll do that. Yeah. No, there was a salesperson involved, and every single company, including like the CEO is the best part, right? That person should be number one salesperson in their company, period. End of story. Yeah. And yet I found more CEOs that are the worst salespeople, and they try to tell their salespeople how to do it. It goes back to the old like Glenn Ross movie over there, where Al Pacino's over there going, oh yeah, Mr. Big Shot. Why don't you pull out a pack of gum, show me how to chew it, right? I mean, that's exactly like,
I love Glenn Glary.
Unless you haven't invested time, a lot of effort, and fallen on your face multiple times. And that's where I love people like you, because you're trying to be able to help them fall on their face less, because salespeople is the highest churn and burn job that anybody could do. Yeah. Anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned, well, just a lot of things. I mean, but the funniest part is like, yeah, how you mentioned the companies you didn't realize had salespeople, and the reason, well, and a lot of that is like sometimes they don't even call them salespeople,
Oh, I
what do
know.
they call like account executives? Like I'm like, okay, they're like, are you a
Just
salesperson? No,
put
I'm an account.
sales.
Yeah, I go. Well, my favorite one is like most people will say this, but I've had a couple of people like, what do you do? I'm an account executive. Oh, you're in sales. No, I'm an account executive. I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, you sure are.
they drank that
But
Kool-Aid pretty good.
but I had this guy, somebody had wrote a comment on Facebook and they were like, something about somebody was just gauging cold emails. Somebody had written like, do you like cold emails? Which is always just like, I never comment on those because it's always just a trap. Like somebody's trying to fight you or something. But I was just reading through it. And some guy goes, I never buy anything from someone who's done a cold email or a cold call. Like I'll never buy from you. And I go, what are you?
Shit.
I go, what are you talking? So then I go look at his profile, and he's not, obviously he's not in business. And I go, okay. But then I had to comment on this, and I go, dude, do you realize like what you just said? Like what the lettuce you buy at the grocery store on the shelf was put there by a salesperson.
Yep.
Like literally they called the grocery store and said, hey, we want to put our lettuce on your grocery store. Will you let us do it? The grocery store probably at first said, no, we already have too much lettuce. And the salesperson had to convince them to put their lettuce on there, right? Because there's not, you think that all lettuce is made by the same person, and it's not.
No.
And he was like, well, yeah, but that's not the same. I'm going, yes, it is. Somebody cold called a grocery store to get that carrot in your bag, dude.
I know the exact same person. 100%. I know the exact same person. They go into, if I
hate salespeople, I'll never buy from salespeople. I go, right. Shut up, dude. Shut up.
Advertising doesn't work on me. Right. Nice Ford truck. Where'd you get that Stetson on your head? Right.
Yeah. I go, whatever.
I only buy from Cal Ranch. And you're like, okay, why is that? And you go, because they have the best. Okay.
Yeah.
When you start to go into it, it's really fun to be able to open people's eyes like that. Yeah. And you start peeling, and it starts to become a little bit more clear. And then when they realize it, immediately when that aha moment comes into their eyes, I'm like, you weren't fooled. Yeah. You were just being able to be pointed towards something that you could appreciate. Yeah. Now, we've all had buyer's remorse, and that's okay. Yeah, we've probably been a part of that buyer. I know I've been a part of that buyer's remorse. I know.
Me too. Yeah, me too.
And I'm proud of that, because you know what? At least I tried to be, and I learned from that. Yeah. I learned, and that's my goal as what I do today, is to constantly being able to go out there and make it easier for salespeople not to have that constant wall. Are all of them going to get it? No, you're still going to have the Grant Cardones out there. And I'm shitting on Grant Cardone because it was later on, it was like, being told that Santa Claus is real. And then all of a sudden you see your parents putting out the food, and your dad eating the cookies, and the food, the gifts.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh shit, I've been lied to. And that's how I felt. But anyways, go ahead.
No, it's funny. It's just, I agree with you, because you just get put in these situations, and I just tell salespeople, I'm like, look, and you know what was the best aha moment? I was in a sales training with a group of they were digital marketing business owners and stuff like that. And I was like, dude, guys, listen, a lot of you guys are afraid to sell because you're afraid of going from like a 5-star review to a 4.8. And I'm telling you, the best salespeople I know are not 5 stars. They're like 4 5s, 4. You know what I mean? Because like people are going to get mad at you. And one of my favorite stories is like, dude, you can't be afraid to foul out. But on the flip side, like there's a balance to it, right? Like you're saying, like you can't be an asshole every time. But like there's some people who just aren't going to like you. You know what I mean? And you just got to, I don't know.
Well, that's a fine line, being an asshole. The way that I describe it, I'm like, look, nobody wants to be told that their baby's ugly. But your baby's ugly. And if your baby's ugly, well, then look, we've got a chance to make her beautiful, to make him handsome, to make him whatever, right? We have an opportunity to do that because nobody knows you. And that's a hard thing to tell them, especially within the marketing realm.
Yeah, well, and what's that phrase? I think it was in, because I'm like you, dude. I read all the old school, but like, and he's not really old school, but like Jeffrey Gitmer, the Little Red Book
Yeah,
of Selling. One of the things that I love in that book was he was like, everybody wants to buy, but no one wants to be sold. And that's the delicate, that's how you, it's like, well, how do you achieve that, dude? Well, that's an art. That's where the art comes in, because like,
exactly.
I
And
didn't
that's
buy, you know what I mean? I wasn't sold. It was like, yeah, okay. But like, but I used to sell cars, you'd sell, when people would brag the most about the car they bought, when they overpaid for it
yeah,
all the time. Like
right.
we would sell and I sold Hondas. So we weren't charging people over sticker for very many things. But the first year that
Still,
the Civic Type R came out, it was like Honda's consumer sports car, whatever. Anyway, you're like,
you
it's
feel
it's a
like Vin
Honda,
Diesel.
it's a Honda Civic, right? But like, let me tell you something. There was only, when they first came out, there was 8 dealerships in Utah. Each dealer got one for the year. And so of course, what do we get?
Yeah.
You're not going to buy that for any kind of discount, period, right? And what was funny? Like we'd sell to people, and we would hear them go tell their friends, like, do you know how much I paid for this car? 10 grand over sticker. That's how much of a baller I am. And I would be like, hell yeah, dude. But it was so funny. Like, you've never heard someone brag about, well, okay, I take that back, I misspoke. You have heard people talk about how, how they got $10,000 off of a car, but then you look at that person, and you're like, yeah, we know you probably got, you argued with the grocery store guy just a few minutes ago too, right? About how your coupon was expired and you wanted a discount on carrots, right? Nobody likes that guy.
Well, but even then, I mean, who's created that? Who's created
Yeah,
that?
that's fair.
Shitty
Yeah, that's
marketers, shitty salespeople. Like they've
You're
done
right,
that.
dude.
They
Yeah.
they've abused them on that part where, it's
Yeah.
like, okay, one of the first people that try to teach me B2B selling, right? Face to face,
Okay.
belly to belly selling. This guy, I mean, and bless his heart, he did a lot for me.
Yeah.
Is he the best salesman? Oh no, he's horrible. But my favorite thing, he's like, watch this. We're gonna go in. This is, this is fairly a while ago, and
Mhm.
we're going in. We sit down. He goes, just pay attention to what I say. And he sees a picture of his kids. He goes, you always have to bring his kids into the conversation. And he says, oh yeah, you got kids? I mean, clearly there's a picture on his desk. And he goes, the guy's like, yeah. And you just look like, what are you doing? And he's like, yeah. He goes, yeah, I don't know what it is about kids and being picky eaters, right? Your kids picky eaters. And he's like,
geez.
yeah. This is like a really bad conversation. And I'm sitting there watching
those
this.
are the ones. Yeah, you just want to like crawl under the table. You're like, bro, just call me when this is over.
Oh no, it was great because I thought it was
like,
working.
you're the guy.
I was like, because I was so new to outside sales. I'd done online and I did phone. And so I'm like looking at this guy like, he's Qui-Gon Jinn. Like, that's a big of a nerd I am, bringing up Star Wars references. But he's like, I'm just watching. I'm like, dude, what's up? But come to find out, he's Steven Seagal. He's a liar. He's a fake. He's a fraud. And so you're like, and it was later on realizing that those types of individuals need to be big enough. So for those executives that are out there saying, let me show you how to chew bubble gum, and they watched you pick it up off the ground and put it into your mouth, yeah, maybe you should find somebody else to teach them this, because it is an absolute art. And the same with marketers. I've met more marketers that are not empathetic people. They're all calculated. They're like, well, if I do these things and put these words in, it'll spit out the results. I'm like, no, you have to understand, like you said, the customer story has to be in there. So it always goes back to, and I've kind of made a name for myself of calling people out on that, because I'll just be like, no, your baby's ugly. I think that's kind of, I think your idea is left wanting. You need to be able to invest into it in another way. And they have a hard time pulling back from that. And understandable. But again, I want you to tell me if my baby's ugly, if it's ugly, because I don't want to dress them up going, they're the most beautiful thing I've ever created. And you bring it out to the world and everybody's like, oh, I'm sure she'll be beautiful when she gets older, but please don't bring her out in public again. Like, come on.
Yeah. Right? Wait, yes. And you're mentioning there that like, you think you've got this great sales process, or you think you've got this great product, and you've just totally missed the mark, right?
Well, it's all about you, right?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
like when we first met.
Right.
I like you. And it goes back. I mean, if we want to go old school, right?
Yeah.
People buy from those that they know, like, and trust.
Right.
So that, and they think, oh, well, I've just got to be around them for me to know them. Yeah, that's the creepy guy who stalks girls. Like, I
Well, and
know her.
that's the guy who never leaves the networking meeting, or like, he's always like, all right, what's everybody's ask so that I can ask something. And yeah, that's one of the reasons I was turned off to like networking meetings, or like, what's everybody's ask? Like, do we have to be here to like, I don't have one, dude. I'm just here to have fun. Like, I don't have an ask. Like, why don't I'm here because I want to be with you guys. Are you guys here only because I can give you something? Like, that's no fun. Like, that's not fun. I don't want to do that.
Well, right. I mean, we're all people. We want to be able to connect with others. And quite often, if I meet somebody new, and if we're about 10, 30, even a minute into our conversation, and they
Yeah.
immediately go to, what do you do? I disrupt it. I'll
Yeah.
say, yeah, I do midget porn, or, I smoke pot for a living. And they always like, it's to distract them, because I'm like, look, are you
Yeah.
going for it so quickly? Right.
Right. Right.
It
I
reminds,
understand. Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I
When
get
you
you. I hear you.
when you let your cell show, then everybody gets to smell. I mean, I got so many different, like, my wife said it last night. She goes, I do not know how your mind puts stuff together and how you associate things, because they're using, I mean, these salespeople show up and they've got desperation, the stinkiest of colognes, and they show up and you can smell it on them. And then immediately they're like, so what do you do?
Or
Yeah.
like, yeah. But I think my least favorite way to start a conversation, or like, oh well, it's like, oh, what was that movie? Was it Boiler Room? When he goes, when the guy, he gets the call, and the newspaper guy's like, "Hi, is this Mr. So and So?" Yeah. Hey, Mr. So and So, how you doing? And he goes, "Shitty. What do you want?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, sorry, I'll call you later." He's like, "That was your pitch?" He's like, "Start over."
And I love that. He walks him through it, and
Yeah,
he's like,
yeah,
there
yeah.
you
Then he
go,
goes,
buddy. There you go. That was a
he's like,
close. He
"That's a
goes,
sales pitch." He's like, "So you gonna buy it?" He's like, "No, I already go with the times." I'm
yeah, and
like,
he hangs up on him. I
yes.
was like,
But
but
that's like, but that's the worst way to do it. If somebody calls you, they're like, "How are you?" I'm like, "Dude, terrible. What do you need? How can I help you?" They're like, "Well, what's good?" Like, because you'll never say like, "Well, why is everything terrible?" Like, they'll just be like, "Oh, sorry, I made you mad." Well, why'd you ask the question then, dude? That's the stupidest question to ask somebody. Like, genuinely.
exactly.
Like, they didn't even tell us. Like, I was a crisis counselor for the crisis text line. Basically the National Suicide Hotline, but they didn't call, they
Very
texted,
cool.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
And they told us not to ask that question. Like, you wouldn't say like, "Hey, how are you?" You would say like, "Hey, it sounds like you're having a rough day. Can you tell me more about that?" That's an empathetic question. How are you
Yeah.
is not an empathetic question. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
Well, truly.
tell me about what's going on in your day. That's like the same question, but you didn't sound like you know what I mean? Like, my philosophy in sales is like, it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Dude, 100%. I mean, I've say that so often. I can't take credit for that quote. I don't know who came up with it, but it is
Amen.
100%.
Yeah.
Right. It's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Yeah.
So tone, pitch, and people believe, they go, well, I can't communicate that in an email or a text or a marketing campaign. Yes, you can.
Yeah, you can. Totally, you can.
You have to understand, right? And it goes always back
Amen.
to a salesperson needs to be able to see them, and a marketer needs to see that. I know we've harped on salespeople, so we can shit on some marketers, but
Sure.
but both of us are in the same category. That's why I think I've done so well in marketing, because I know what it's like to be that bottom feeder going, well, you guys said you'd give me leads, and they're like, well, go out and hunt. But everybody already knows that it literally feels like you're coming in there, but you've got this really crappy costume of a wolf on. You've painted your nose, you put in those crappy fangs that distort your voice. They're not the little glue on ones. And you're coming in, and they're like, all this sheep know. They're like, dude, you're not fooling anybody. You're like, what? Like, yeah, dude, I see you there with the flat bill rim and the polo shirt. You got to get out, bro.
You're pest control and tech bros, of course.
Yeah, exactly. And
of course,
it's not, you have to disrupt that. You have to understand exactly where the customer is. So putting a little bit of research, time, and effort, and then constantly coming up with new ideas on how to be able to connect. And once you figure it out, then you go, there's our gold. But the caveat is you have to recreate that within about 3 to 6 months, because it's going to change.
Yeah.
real quick. And the most important part is, as long as they trust you, as long as they like you, then you are going to have this amazing connection. And they're not going to worry. Those guys I told you about, where I said, you can tell me no at any time. They turned out to be one of my favorite clients. And I remember this company was a large tech company. They sold a lot of IT equipment. And we're there at this conference, and they had this thing set up with like an Xbox 360 and Gears of War. And the guys saw me, they go, "Hey, Jess, come play with us." So I'm like, okay. And I'm playing, and my sales VP of the company, who's now the CEO, he calls me out like a father who just watched his kids spill on the neighbor's carpet. He says, "Jesse, that is for the customers, not for the staff. Get off that."
Oh, what?
The CTO, who was my client, he says, "So we're this company. We've never bought from you before. Jesse came in, developed a relationship with us, a friendship, never asked us to buy anything. He just wanted to learn about us. So we made one of the biggest purchases we've ever made from your company. So I don't know who you are, but you're an asshole. And you shouldn't talk to some of your best people like that." And my sales VP did not like me, because I wasn't conventional. I wasn't like, okay, I'll come in and I'll just hammer the phones all day. I'm like, give me your shit list and let me go through it. And what I found is that all these clients felt like, hey, they didn't care. They're either showing up to take me golfing or out for lunch.
You're right.
Buy my affection. So I'm a hooker. That's what you think I am. I'm a hooker. Okay. When I showed up to one client, he goes, "I've had plenty of golf and I don't want to go out to eat." And I said, "Actually, I've been looking at the last 3 years of purchasing. You haven't done most. So you haven't purchased anything actually at all. So I'm here to collect. I like burgers or steaks, wherever you want to pay for. That sounds good to me." And he laughed and he goes, "Take a seat." And I didn't ask him for anything, but I created that bond, learned about things over there, and saying, "Hey, if there's anything that I can do, literally, give me a call. I'm not trying to." He goes, "What's new? What are they pitching these days?" I'm like, "It wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter. I just wanted to be able to make that bond." And so I would really put that on many, salespeople, entrepreneurs, marketers that are listening to this. Is you got to understand that first part is not going to be a transaction. It's not going to be a close. Those are to be appreciated, but not expected. But, your whole opportunity there is just a little taste of trust. I want to give you some trust, and I'm going to give it to you in thimbles. And then once we've established this and you no longer have any type of pushback on me, all right, I'm going to tell you why I'm here.
Yeah. I think because I feel the same way about like, I love what you did there in the sales thing. I think that's a great sales tactic. I use that word loosely, but like something that people need to learn, because I do the same thing. Like when people wanted to buy cars, or like they wanted to buy, or like, we'd be selling digital marketing, packages or whatever. They're like, somebody goes, in cars, it was my favorite. Somebody be like, "I'm not going to buy a car at all." I go, "Good. Thank goodness. I wasn't expecting you to buy it all. Actually, you're going to save me a lot of time for not buying a car. So I appreciate it." They're like, "What?" I was like, "So
why don't you want to sell me a car?"
Yeah. They're like, I'm not buying shit today." Oh, thank goodness. I thought you were going to actually take up a lot of my time and I was going to have to do all this paperwork. So, well, let's just show you the car real quick and then you can leave. Like, you just joke with like, that's what I would do. Like if somebody was like just a douche, I'd be like, "All right, cool. Thank goodness." I was like,
Well, and why do we have to be so, and this may be taken wrong by some, but why do we have to be so freaking professional? I mean, what day and age do we live in that we all, I mean, it'd be hilarious to watch a sales rep on a car lot. All of a sudden you got all those guys out there, they've got a polo on, it's blue, it's red, whatever. And then this guy shows up looking like Don Draper from Mad Men. And he walks out there going, "So, see, you've been looking at that Chevy Impala over there. What would it take to get you in there?" Like, what the hell? What's this guy? Like, that would be a shock. I mean, one, it'd be like, it's 110 degrees out here. Why are you wearing that? But
it's that attention thing, right? Like the currency of today is like attention, right? Like it's not oil, it's data, and it's not gold, it's attention, right? It's like, how do you get that from people? Like my favorite thing to say when like somebody says, like even today, like it doesn't matter who's it, but like I don't have any time right now. And I'd be like, oh, thank goodness, because I don't either, actually. So how about we just knock this out in 5 minutes and then we can go get drinks later? They're like, okay,
Right.
cool. But it's like I don't either. Like, what do you think? Like, you don't have time. I don't have time either, bro. I'm a professional. This is crazy. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
no,
Like,
I love what you said. I used to do that every once in a while when I picked up from other people, and they'd say, I was like, hey, look, I've got 3 minutes to be able to tell you why I've called. And from there, you could be able to decide if you want to be able to do it. And they said, I can't give you 3 minutes. I'm like, good, because I can do it in a minute and a half. And they go, okay.
Yeah,
And I would literally get a timer. I'm like, I'm no bullshit. I'm going to say a minute and a half. If this timer goes off, we're done and we can just hang up.
yeah.
And he goes, okay, cool. And they would laugh because that's the whole thing. It's disruption, right?
Yeah,
That's
and
what marketing is. It's
yeah,
disruption.
and you know what's funny is like you know what, another thing I used to love, and this is what I teach people all the time, like, because everybody's like, I hate the game of sales, I hate the game of marketing, I hate the game. It's like, well, okay, if you actually hated it, you would come to me with a decision already made, and you'd be
Yeah.
cool with the first price that I told you. But it is a game, so why don't we have fun with it? Because I love it, dude. It's like I don't play games. Oh, thank goodness, because I thought we were gonna have to go do this for a long time. Here's my price. Call me when you're
But
ready.
because
You know
you
what I
didn't
mean? It's
look like you
dude,
could afford it.
right? Yeah.
Right.
Oh, you know what I mean? Or like, I'm not playing any games with you today, son. It's like, okay, cool, me either. Like,
But
sorry, sir. It's just like, dude,
yeah, exactly. But
those are my favorite. You just have fun. You just like make people laugh. I don't know. There's that
no,
old thing that
totally.
I do. The only old school principle that I really still buy into is that if you can make someone laugh, you've got a really good shot at a deal.
Totally.
Like, I
Yeah,
still believe in that a lot.
that's a Ronald Reagan type thing, right? Always
Yeah.
leave them laughing. And
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's going to listen to that going, gosh, this is freaking hardcore right neo, whatever.
Yeah,
I'm
whatever.
not
He
that
was
guy.
he was a
Well, I
but
look
that,
at the
I don't
person
know.
like
I go,
Kennedy.
yeah, dude, you can learn something good from anybody,
Oh,
for the most
absolutely.
part. It's like, dude, the whole political thing, I'm just like, whatever. But you know what's funny though? I had a friend who, we were on the car lot, he was like diehard Democrat, like, and I don't align politically with anybody. This was just a funny joke that I was playing on my
Right.
friend at the time. Because we were cool, and he hated Donald Trump, absolutely hated Donald Trump, but he was not the best sales guy. So, and I was his sales manager. So I said, hey, on his birthday, I said, hey, I got you a present. Hopefully it's going to make you better at sales. And it was Donald Trump's book, The Art of the Deal. He got so mad. He got so mad and threw it away. And I was like, bro, you threw my present away. He was like, I know what you're trying to do to me. It was funny. It was
No,
and then he ended up getting better at selling because he didn't want me to give him Donald Trump's second book on selling. So
well, I better
I'm
get
gonna
it
keep
because he
giving
keeps giving it to me.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep giving it to you until you get
Well, and that's another thing. It's a great point to bring up. There is no right or wrong answer within marketing
Yeah.
and sales. There is no
Yeah.
right or wrong answer. There is just discovery. There's just
Yeah.
constant the furtherment of knowledge, because we want to learn more about what we are trying to perceive of value, right? It's very crazy to think about. Like, you will do things, and there are a bunch of TikTokers and OnlyFans people who are willing to do anything for small rectangles that are green. Like, that's blows my mind. It's like, but I can exchange these notes of value, because I look at them as value. It's not one, it's not 10, it's not 100, it's not $1,000. These are notes of value. And when I exchange them, I think about it quite often. I do that to myself if I'm walking through a Walmart, because if I've given enough time and enough of my favorite plant, I will walk through there and I will start buying random stuff. But I'll get my cart a bunch of stuff in there, and then I think about it and I'm like, is that valuable? Do I need that? Do I want it? Want is stronger than need. No, I don't. I don't see any value there. And then but that's what I love about it, is that even shopping at a grocery store, every time I'm looking at what salesperson put that time in to get that on the shelf, what marketer went through different iterations of those boxes, the messaging, the font, everything that went into you going, I'll take Oreos and I'll take this. You think that your shopping is totally free will. It's not. We have manipulated you to the point where you're buying those things. And people go, no, I don't buy name brand. Exactly. Exactly.
Dude, what was it? One of my best, like one of my most watched TikToks and Instagrams was I was a short snippet of my podcast where I told the story that is found in The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg about Target, about how Target knew that this person's daughter was pregnant before the dad did. And it was because they had mapped their customers' data so well that they knew that because she was buying X, Y, and Z, that she had to have been in this bucket. And they ended up being right. And it was scary how accurate it was. Like the dad ended up coming, like groveling back to Target, like, you were right. Sorry, I yelled at you. Sorry, I tried to sue you for marketing pregnancy to my 16-year-old daughter, who actually ended up telling me later that night that she was pregnant. It was crazy. Like that story is so resonates with everybody because it's just this wild proof that, like, yeah, dude, like our decisions are heavily influenced by brands and marketing and selling and like, for better or for worse, call it whatever you want, but like I've benefited from a lot of the things that people have tried to market to me.
Totally. Oh, absolutely. And I'm
Like
appreciative of
easy,
it.
right?
There are things that I've purchased that I hold in high esteem. It's not
Yeah.
the quality, the craftsmanship. It's not
Yeah.
the amazing results that I got from the services, because I was emotionally bought in.
Yeah.
I was like,
Well, I
I feel
told people
good.
when I was selling cars, they'd be like, what, we would get in like random discussions. And I'd be like, look, if this was a logical decision, you'd buy the shittiest car that I had on my lot, be okay with paying $500 or $600 a month to maintain it, because that's cheaper than buying a $50,000 car that works the first time you buy it. But like you're not doing that. So like,
No.
you know what I mean? Like you want the nice car, and I don't blame you for that. Right. And then we would go into like talking, but like, that's how I would start some of the closes with some of these guys who are like, not closes, but how I would start some of the buying conversations with these people who like just argued with me on like, why would I ever spend $50,000 for a car? Well, because you're sitting down in front of me. That's how I know you're about to do it. Because like you wouldn't be here. You would have gone to KSL, found the crappiest car that worked on what you needed, right? And then you would have found a
Right.
mechanic and just paid whatever he told you to fix it, right? Like, but you didn't do that. You're here talking to me. So now, and then I go, so can we stop playing games and just get into this? Or like, are we gonna, do you want to keep doing this? Cause like, I'll play games with you. I'm cool with that.
Dude, it's like that sign over there that people will put on their doors, no soliciting. But they should
Yeah.
put on there going, please don't sell to us. We buy everything that people try to sell us.
Right.
Because it's a self-control issue. Like if you can't be honest with the kid who shows up at your door, just saying, hey, look, I'm not interested. I understand. I've already got somebody over there. I guarantee you can't beat their price. I already trust them. I don't know you, but I appreciate you coming by.
Yeah.
See you later. And if they show up the next week, I'll be like, all right, yeah, I'll listen to you.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. Yeah. People in my neighborhood were mad at the Vivint guys for going around. They're like, did you know Vivint's going door to door? I was like, yeah, I actually just bought my whole Vivint system from the guy who went door to door. It was crazy because I was like, the guy knocked on my door and it was so uncanny. Like 2 days before, I was talking to my wife. I was like, dude, if like all of our bedrooms are upstairs and I have a sliding screen door that I don't have any protection on, right? And so the Vivint guy goes, hey, it was crazy. The first thing he goes is like, hey, I saw your screen door. Do you have a lock on that? Or do you know if it's been, do you know how to tell if it's been open or not? And I was like, no. He's like, well, we have these sensors that like will alert you if your screen door has been open or left open, so your kids don't leave it open. And I go, that's it, bro. Yeah, come have a seat. Spent like $2,000 with him.
Yeah.
And it was like, and people were like, how do you like door to door people? I'm like, because I needed it. If I didn't need him, I would have been like, hey, dude, appreciate you. Move on to the next. But it was like, I don't know. People always get mad, but I love door to door. I'm like, hey, yeah, come on in, bro. Whatever. If I don't like it though, I bought my pest control door to door. I bought Vivint door to door. It's great. I love it.
Now, one thing, I mean, I'm not going to buy magazines because nobody has magazines anymore. So if that kid
Wait,
shows
do they still do that? Have you had a magazine?
No, I don't
Okay.
know.
I was like,
I remember.
I had a vacuum person. I have a carpet cleaning person come to my house one day. I was like, bro, this is wild. I was like, what do you do? She's like, I sell carpet cleaning. I was like, no way.
What was it, Kirby?
Yeah, I don't know, dude. I was just fascinated. I was like, you're selling door-to-door carpet cleaning? She goes, yeah. I'm like, well, no, I don't want it because I don't really need my carpet cleaned. Actually, yeah, I told her, I was like, I just had a guy, my wife paid $100 to do it. I was like, but that's wild that you still do that. I'm like, good for you. Not this house though. Go to the next door. But like, crazy, man.
Right? They still use older tactics. You know, my grandfather, who I really didn't know, and from what I know, he was a real dick, but he used to sell vacuum cleaners door to door, and he did really well. He did very well. And
Door to
I
door
remember,
works. Like, it's great.
well,
I mean,
it
I don't
totally,
yeah,
I don't think it should ever stop. I think it's just
sure.
the approach, like you said right there, that
Yeah.
that guy coming over there and saying, "Hey, just quick question," and that's great, right? You're developing it. You're going off of a story rather than
Yeah.
like, "Hi, my name is Chet, and I work for so and so pest control. Did you know?"
That's
And
so
it's like,
true.
and you see him, and he's staring,
Yeah.
not at you. He's staring off because he's got that sheet that he's memorizing. His
Right,
eyes are
right,
moving,
dude. Yeah.
and you're
But you
like,
know what's funny? The pest control guy did the same thing. I answered the door. He saw my kids run by. He's like, "Hey, do you guys have like?" He's like, "Obviously, I'm with pest control." And he goes, "But did you? But like, he said something about the, the kids. He was like, "Hey, do the kids like?" And at the time, it was crazy because yeah, we'd find like ant bites or like mosquito bites on my kids, and he'd be like, do you guys? And I'm like, "Yeah, my kids do get bit." He's like, "Well, here's what we do for that." And I was like, "Great, yeah, yep, there's my card, go spray, come back in a quarter." But it was just crazy. But like, yeah, I needed it. I appreciated his approach. And then you buy it. Like, I don't know. I don't have a no soliciting sign. I'm just like, if I don't want it, I'll just tell you no, dude. Like,
yeah.
I'll
I don't
just
get
tell
mad
you.
at them either. Why
Yeah.
why
It's like,
should you?
whatever.
They're trying to
Yeah.
do that, and somebody's building a
It's so,
business over there.
yeah, it's so
That's
crazy.
and I want to be able to contribute to somebody else's success.
Yeah.
I'd be a farce if I said that I didn't want to contribute. I'm
Yeah.
very hard on the story. Like if
Shoot,
that's
for
your
real.
story, I'm sorry. Mm-mm.
Yeah. I
Maybe
love
you
it.
should try it this way. And they go, "Who are you?"
You're
And
starting
I'm
to do
like,
like, yeah, dude. Yeah, that's so funny. Well, dude, we could talk for another couple hours, but
yeah.
I will let you go. And because you've been more than generous with your time, I know we're busy. But before I go, though, how do people follow you? How do people get a hold of you?
So, real quick, shout out over there. So I have a podcast that I started over
Yeah.
a year ago, and it's Cannabis School. And our focus is to be able to help new consumers discover that cannabis isn't the devil's lettuce, and that can actually help you quite a bit. And so we grew within a very short amount of time to being the #1 cannabis podcast in the world. We're #1 on Spotify and Apple. You can find Cannabis School. You can go to cannabisschool.us, but we're building out the website right now. But our focus is to be able to do that. So if you want to get a hold of me there, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Jesse Angeles. Yeah, the one thing that I want anybody to be able to take away from this is that it matters what you say and how you say it. And if you don't know what you're doing there, then you need to seek out professional help. You need somebody to come in there that understands those things. So if you're in that kind of mode and you want somebody to tell you your baby's ugly, give me a shout out. Say, "Hey, what do you think about my baby?" Like,
I love it. Yeah, dude, I love it. All right,
pretty
dude. Well,
cool.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, you bet, brother.